The minority seconds left.
I ask consent to extend the time into the colloquy into Democratic time.
Is there objection?
No objection.
Without objection.
I thank the Democratic whip for that. Well, I want to congratulate Senator Enzi and Senator Durbin and say how pleased I am to join as a co-sponsor in their legislation. And here's what I want to congratulate them for. Senator Enzi said he came to this as a former mayor, as a former shoe shop owner, and as a former legislator. I come as a former governor. And in our constitutional framework, I've always thought it was our business in Tennessee to decide what services we wanted to provide and what taxes we wanted to levy to pay for them. For example, we have a high sales tax, but we have no income tax. That's different than most states. We have a low overall tax burden. And so for me, this is, as Senator Durbin and I have discussed, as a matter of states' rights. But the most important thing I think I could say today, or that we could say today, is I think they've solved the problem with this legislation. This problem's been there for a long time. It's had the opposition of conservatives worried about taxes. It's had the opposition of Amazon and other online sellers. The Supreme Court said 20 years ago that it was too complicated for out-of-state vendors to figure out how to collect sales taxes when something is purchased and send it to the state, which is what the Main Street seller does. And maybe that was true 20 years ago. But the Supreme Court said 20 years ago, it invited us in Congress to solve this problem. And Senator Enzi and Senator Durbin, with this legislation, in my opinion, have solved the problem, and this is going to happen. Now, I'm not presumptuous enough to predict what the United States Congress will do and what the president will sign. But I think I've been around long enough and I've watched Congress enough to say this is going to happen. And if I were a governor, if I were an online retailer, or if I were a catalog retailer, I would make my plans to conduct my business in this way. Why do I say that? Well, for one thing, times have changed. This morning I got up and looked up the weather in my hometown. So I put in weather 37886, that's my zip code, and back came the information. Under the bill that Senator Durbin and Senator Enzi have proposed, the state would have the option of completely creating a system for the Amazon, let's say, as an example, an online seller. All they'd have to do if I buy a $300 or $400 television set is they put my name in, they put in my zip code, and the software that the state has provided will tell them what the tax is and will even electronically transfer the tax money back to the state. In other words, Amazon will do the same thing that the appliance store in Maryville, Tennessee will do, and that's what we intended to happen. I mean, when we passed a sales tax in Tennessee, I wasn't around then, but I was around when it's been raised, we didn't intend to exempt some people over others. We didn't tend to subsidize some businesses over others. We made a general decision that when you buy things in Tennessee, we're going to pay for them primarily with a sales tax. We have a local sales tax and we have a state sales tax, and that's our right to decide. Some of the opposition in the past has come from conservative groups, and it was important just yesterday to see the president of the American Conservative Union write a very strong letter in support of a House version of this same bill. And I talked with him yesterday, Mr. Al Cardenas, a businessman from Florida, and he's reviewing our bill. 10 years ago, William F. Buckley wrote about this problem and said that it was a loophole and needed to be solved. And when states decided to subsidize some taxpayers over others and some businesses over others, that was not good conservative philosophy. So I think on all sides, when you have Amazon supporting in the strong letter that Senator Enzi read, when you have the president of the American Conservative Union on the same day announcing his support for the same principles, I think you've solved the problem. And what we've seen over the last 20 years is a great many voluntary agreements between companies like Amazon and other companies that sell online or sell by catalogs to say, okay, now that we've figured out how to do it, it's fine with us. And as Amazon just said, they're in business to compete, and they can sell their goods, they claim, cheaper online than they can buy them in Senator Enzi's store in Gillette, Wyoming. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but at least they'll have a level playing field, and both the store in Wyoming, in Gillette, Wyoming, and the seller online will both do the very same thing. They'll collect the sales tax that's already owed from the purchaser, and they'll send it directly to the state, which has been the way things have worked for a long time. So this is an issue about preserving the state's right to collect or not to collect its own sales tax. It's about closing a tax loophole. It's about stopping the subsidization of some businesses over others, of some taxpayers over others. Here's what William F. Buckley said about it, and I'll conclude my remarks in just a moment. The mattress maker in Connecticut doesn't like it if out-of-state businesses are in practical terms subsidized. That's what the non-tax amounts to. Local concerns are complaining about traffic in mattresses and books and records and computer equipment that ordered through the internet come in, so to speak, duty-free. And of course, governors and legislators are up in arms as well. According to the National Council of Legislators, this loophole costs states $28 billion. Tennessee could use this money to ward off a state income tax, which we don't have and we don't want. Wyoming could use the revenue to reduce its property tax. Other states might reduce rising college tuitions, or they might reward outstanding teachers. This has been a problem for the last 20 years. But Senator Enzi and Senator Durbin, with their legislation, have solved the problem. So I'll stop where I started. This is not a new tax. It's an existing tax. It's not on the internet. It's on all sales. And what Senator Enzi and Durbin have done have solved the problem. And I predict that because of the voluntary agreements and the ease of out-of-state vendors doing the same thing that Main Street vendors do, that very soon we'll eliminate these subsidies, close this loophole, and I congratulate them for their years of work in this area. I'm happy to join 10 senators, 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats in co-sponsoring this legislation.
For a moment, would the senator yield for a moment?
Oh, yes.
I'd like to go on the record, I'm sure, on behalf of myself and Senator Enzi, and say that Senator Alexander doesn't give himself enough credit. He's been an integral part of our effort to put together this bipartisan bill. We wouldn't be here without him. I want to thank him for facilitating the bipartisan effort to put this bill together, and I share his feelings. I think we've finally found that sweet spot, and we can pass this bill. Thank you.
I thank the senator from Illinois, and I wonder if I might ask consent to include in the record following my remarks the article by Al Cardenas, the head of the American Conservative Union, the essay by William F. Buckley, and a letter from Governor Bill Haslam of Tennessee endorsing the Enzi-Durbin legislation.
Without objection, it'll be included.